Okay, meaningful and tangible reasons why Ireland can survive. This is a man who's lost his 3 children to emigration. He doesn't think his grandchildren will ever live in the Emerald Isle. Give it your best shot. What can you say to Finian?
We need a real republic based upon genuine republican values. 1,000 of our young people will have emigrated by this time next week. A real republic means they should have the right to work here. Creating jobs is the most important thing that we could do, and Sinn Féin is very, very focused on putting taxpayers' money into jobs and not into toxic banks, standing up for citizens and not big corporations.
I'm going to a second question. Natasha Byrne. Natasha, so what's your question for the party leaders?
My question is, why the government letting the banks put pressure on people to pay their mortgage when they couldn't pay their repayments? They had to be bailed out, and they were bailed out. So what's there for the people? People
who are in politics make political choices. So we have to make political choices that help that lady and other people in mortgage difficulties, and the state has to protect them. There were bailouts for the banks. There are still bailouts for the banks. There is 29 billion going to go into Anglo-Irish Bank in March, and none of these parties have said they won't put it in. Sinn Féin is saying we will not put 1 red cent into any of these banks until the banks are restructured and acting in the common good and acting on behalf of citizens and being part of the regeneration of our economy. And that's what comes down to it. If you support elites, if you support golden circles, you take certain choices. If you support citizens, then you take totally different choices. As a matter of basic principle, there should be no evictions in Ireland. That's as a matter of principle. Now, how do we get out of these difficulties? We first of all have to reduce the deficit, and we have said that can be done in 6 years. We have to honour the sovereign debt. We have to get rid of the toxic banking debt, and I repeat again, none of these parties will give a commitment. Enda says he will not put any more money in than that which is already promised. There should not be. Why should taxpayers? If there's a choice, we would say that one of the awful things that have been done is the universal social charge. We would scrap that. We would bring in a tax bond for those who individually earn over 100,000. Now, what's fairest? Is it what has the least human damage to citizens here? That section who can pay for it, or the people who are being burdened by what these parties facilitate. Sinn Féin never supported blanket guarantees for the banks. In fact, we voted against them. Secondly, all of these parties, Micheál doesn't even need to be in government again, because Eamon gave a very firm commitment that he's going to implement this budget. The 7 billion that we would use to get a job stimulus going, both in terms of the measures that I have outlined and the need, for example, to build the necessary infrastructure and to kickstart our construction industry, these other parties want to put into toxic banks. So you have to start off on a basic principle. Do you support taxpayers? Do you support Irish citizens? Or do you support toxic banks? We are very clear we would not put 1 red cent, and I posed the question earlier on. By March, 29 billion is going to go into Anglo-Irish. We wouldn't do it. All of these parties would.
If you allow the banking system, that choice, Gerry, had to be made between banks and the taxpayer. You choose the banks. Your party chose to back the banks. To be fair to Gerry,
sorry, Micheál, I can speak for myself. Thank you.
No, I want to speak. Pat has invited me to speak, actually, Gerry. You know.
Did you facilitate the passing of the finance bill?
No, we did not.
But then how come all of these parties came together, these two, to push through the worst budget in the history of the state?
Can I come back to that, Gerry?
We keep being told the figures don't add up, because we keep giving our money away. There is genius, there is wisdom in our communities. People who can run GAA clubs, one of the best organisations in the world, can run businesses, and we need to be going in there and supporting them. We're the only place that gives away natural resources like gas and oil. We give it away. We brought in legislation under a Fianna Fáil minister to actually allow big multinational corporations to take our oil and gas.
Gerry still hasn't answered the most simple question that any treasurer of a local GAA club would answer. The treasurer of a local GAA club would know, he or she would know where they're going to get their money next week and next year, either from the local bank or they'll raise it through revenue generating measures. I have no idea where Gerry's going to get the 50 million to continue to pay wages and so on to the public service for the next 4 years. I have no idea where he's going to get the 7 billion, because I tell you why, there's only 4.9 billion left in the pension fund. And if you're going to say, as Gerry has, that there's no cuts, and there's no taxes, and we send the IMF out of the country, how are you going to run the show?
Well, first of all, Micheál has been in government for the last 14 years. He's responsible for the mess. I'm going to answer the question. I didn't interrupt you once.
You did.
Right. Okay, secondly, I put forward a very, very simple cut that you could take. No, and where is the money going to come from? Out of the National Pension Reserve Fund, take the $7 billion. Sorry, please let me finish, Michal. You make the DUP sound like altar boys. Let's have a wee bit of sense here. We can take out of the National Pension Reserve Fund $7 billion over 4 years, take $2 billion this year, create a job stimulus programme. All of these parties have put forward ideas which I happen to agree with. Move it forward in that way. Get rid of the toxic banking debt. And I keep coming back to this. What is killing us, what is just pressing down upon people, is that we're expecting through this universal social charge ordinary people, carers, blind people, to pay for the bad debt in toxic banks and the golden circle.
We have a related question, and we have Ruth Hayes. Hello, Ruth.
So I'm just wondering, who are they targeting? Who will suffer from these cuts?
Okay, according to all the figures, and we can argue all night long about what we should or should not have done, but it seems that any government is going to have to implement cuts of some sort. Who will suffer from the inevitable cuts?
Well, those who can pay most should pay most. And a start would be that these guys give up their severance pays. They thought it was okay to have it when they had good times. It's not okay now because people have caught up on them. And they retire with fat pensions. That should stop. Sinn Féin would not inflict cuts upon lower and middle income families. We would bring in a wealth tax. We would, as I've said before, bring in a third tax band. Just by politicians taking a cut and senior people in the public sector taking a cap of 100,000, we save $500 million. And I have to keep coming back to this point again. We should not put one red cent into toxic banks, or indeed into any of the banks, until the banks are restructured and working in the common good and working for Irish citizens.
Ed Kenny.
Everybody's going to suffer here. Everybody's got to cut back.
So everyone's going to suffer. Gerry Adams.
Well, everyone shouldn't have to suffer. And Sinn Féin's position would not increase income tax on anyone earning below 100,000 individually. Now, Ruth asked the question, who is going to suffer? All of these parties said everybody has to suffer. That means you, Ruth. You shouldn't have to suffer. A republic is about citizenship. You have to have rights. Secondly, it's bad economics because people on lower incomes have to spend. They can't afford not to spend. So it means you can't go to the hairdressers, you can't go for a cup of coffee, you can't support your local businesses. It's just bad,
Gerry Adams,
economics.
Gerry Adams, what people are confused about, these parties, 4 of them, are saying that to some extent various sectors are going to have to suffer. Your message seems to be that nobody's going to suffer. So you're all talking about the same money, so how do you make it last?
I'm talking about citizens of this republic, not having to carry the burden for big bankers, for the golden circle and all the rest of it. It is a matter of political choices. If you make the bad political choices, which this government has made for a very long time, then you end up in the mess that you're in. If you make political choices in support of working people, then you have a totally different outcome. I'm against social welfare fraud, but I'm also against fraud of the white-collar kind. I'm against fraud which has big bankers, financiers, speculators, developers, and some politicians frauding this state and stealing the people's money.
With the greatest respect, Gerry is the last man on this platform to talk about fraud or to talk about anything like that, given the baggage that you've come with from the past. No, I mean that, Gerry. I don't take lectures from you. I just don't.
You're giving me a lecture.
How dare you talk about fraud among politics and among people down here in the Republic?
You're telling me
what went on over the last number of years. You have no right to do it, Gerry.
I have every right to do it.
You should at least have some sense of humility about the whole situation.
I am a very humble person. I am a very humble person. And I have every right to stand up and say there is fraud in there and that fraud needs to be rooted out.
But that's everywhere, Gerry. And if you had been so, as zealous in terms of rooting out fraud in Northern Ireland for quite a long time and the culture in terms of various things that went on, we'd be in a far better place today.
I would like to think that we are in a far better place, and you know this because I did my job.
I'm going to draw this part to a temporary close. Welcome back to the Frontline Leaders Debate, and straight to another question. Fiona Tully. Hello, Fiona.
Hi, how are you?
So your question for the
So my question for you is, it actually seems now that you have to be actually wealthy to be sure that you get, to be sure that you remain healthy. And so why is it now? Do you need money to just get healthcare?
Healthcare, you need to have money or you suffer more than you should. I'll come back to the people who are advocating universal health care in a moment. But Gerry Adams, there seems to be a bit of a fair win behind the universal health care proposal where everyone pays a premium, but if you're poor, the state pays it for you.
We pay for it three ways. Over 50% of citizens pay private insurance. We then pay tax, we then pay the stump. The health services should be paid through direct income tax. It should be free to people at the point of access. If you're a citizen who has the awful affliction of cancer and you live above a line from Galway to Dublin, you cannot get health or help for your illness. It's just absolutely desperate. I'll tell you a very, very brief story of a woman who has 7 children. She lives in Dundalk. They closed the hospital, or almost closed the hospital in Dundalk. Her husband's in Drogheda. He's moved without notice to Navan. She's to make 2 bus journeys. It cost her 17 euros. That is not fair. It's not right, and it's down to bad political choices. Because back to what I've been saying consistently in this, citizens have rights, and that includes the right on the basis of need to a decent, from cradle to the grave.
You say that Fine Gael's proposals, you have said that they're misguided.
Because the consultants here, the Fine Gael's health spokesperson negotiated a deal for the consultants. The consultants get paid more than anybody else in Europe.
Sorry, for the GPs.
They also put public money into privatisation. That's totally and absolutely wrong. Public money should go into public services for the public.
You know, does it matter who's actually running the hospital? I mean, you buy your motor insurance from whoever, you go to a shop run by a local shopkeeper and you buy your bread, your milk. As long as the profit is fair, as long as the operation is efficient, is there anything wrong with getting private contractors?
Health care should not be about profit. Health care should be about cherishing all the children of the nation equally. I want to make a number of very, very quick points. There are 390 people, as we talk now, on hospital corridors up and down this state. That is an indictment of the state. Secondly, someone mentioned mental health provision. Mental health provision is the Cinderella of our health system. And the biggest hidden crisis across this island is the issue of suicide. And we need suicide prevention strategies, and we need strategies to deal with self-harm. And we go back to all of this in terms of political choices. If you have objectives, if you have core values which are Republican and which are Democratic, then you make choices based upon that. We believe it shouldn't be an insurance issue. It should be a matter of entitlement as a birthright. If you are born here, you come to live here, as a citizen, you should have right to health care on the basis of need, not on the basis of how wealthy you are.
Okay, I'm going to leave it there. Derek Staff. So what's your question for the party leaders?
Well, considering the state the country is in at the moment and the importance of this election, why is it that political debates revolve around political one-upmanship more so than just focusing solely on concrete policies for improving our country?
All right, concrete policies. It's all about point scoring. These debates, okay, it's the way we set them up too, but it's all about political point scoring.
We do need change, and what Derek should do is to vote for Sinn Féin. I don't believe in negative campaigning. I'm usually the victim of that, but we are trying to bring about solutions. And I come back to what I was saying all the time. If you have core political values about republicanism, about citizenship, if your objective are to cherish all of those people, if our patriot dead would turn in their graves if they saw the mess that these guys have made of this state and of this country. So it's a matter of good, sound, solid political choices based upon good core Republican values, citizenship and equality.
Gerry Adams, have you considered why none of them want to be in coalition with you?
Well, because we are taking up a totally different position from them. These guys have been in power since the gates, and one guise or other, since the state was established. And they know that we will be an engine for change. They know that we are agents for change. The proof of what we can do and what we've done in the North shows that no one should let their head go down. Believe in ourselves as a people. The Irish people are no mean people, and we can straighten this mess out, and it needs political leadership. The Taoiseach is paid more than President Obama for a small state of 4 million people.
And that can change.
The start needs to be made in terms of empowering citizens.
May I ask our audience to say, with their applause, thank you to our party leaders. Thank you.